Let's now analyze the short-term and long-run effects of an expansionary fiscal policy in the ISLM model. Suppose we start at point A with general equilibrium, where output is at the full employment level or potential level, which is given at the intersection of all the three curves, the IS curve, the LM curve, and the FE line. Now say there's an increase in government expenditure, which shifts the IS curve to the right from IS1 to IS2. And we know through the government purchase multiplying the Keynesian cost, the total amount of horizontal shift in the IS curve, IAB, is represented by delta G to 1 by 1 minus MPC. So now let's look at the short-term effects of this shift in the IS curve towards the right because of an increase in G. Now we know in the short run, prices are fixed and firms meet demand at these prices. So it's the output that changes. Now we'll first move from point A to point B, as when the IS curve shifts towards the right, then for any given real interest rate, including the original level of real interest rate, we have higher output. So now, as we have higher output or income, this increases money demand, which causes interest rate to increase. And as a result of this, this reduces investment, and this will partially reduce output or income. So we move from point B to point C. So in the short run, we started at point A, then we move to point B, and then to point C, which is our new short-run equilibrium. So now at the new short-run equilibrium given by point C, which is at the intersection of the LM curve and the new IS curve, we can see that we have an increase in output above the full employment level, Y2 is greater than Yn, and there's an increase in real interest rate, R2 is greater than R1. To point out over here, we have something that we call the crowding out effect. Now, why is that? Because we started off with point A, then we moved to point B, but then output slightly went down a little, where it went from YB to Y2, because we know because the increase in G caused an increase in real interest rate, which reduced investment and hence reduced output. So we can say that the increase in G crowds out private investment, where in our ISLM model, the total increase in output is less than what would have occurred in the Keynesian frost model, where we assume that investment is exogenous. In the Keynesian frost model, output would have increased to YB. But in the ISLM model, because investment depends upon R and R increases, because of the increase in G, it crowds out private investment, and the total increase in output is less, where it only increases till Y2. So thus we have a crowding out of private investment because of an increase in government purchases. Now let's look at the transition from the short run to the long run. Now we know in the new short run equilibrium at point C, the output Y2 is above the potential level. So firms want to decrease production, and they'll do that by increasing prices. So over time, prices will rise. That will cause real money supply to fall. As a result of this, the LM curve will shift towards the left, and it will stop shifting once the economy reaches a longer equilibrium with output equal to the potential output. Now, in the new longer equilibrium given at point D, where FE line and new IS curve and the LM curve are now going to intersect, the LM curve shifts to the left such that now it passes through the intersection of the FE line and the new IS curve. Now, in the new longer equilibrium at point D, we can see as compared to the original equilibrium that we started off with at point A, so we know prices are higher because it's this price adjustment that shifted the LM curves so that it passes to the intersection of the FE line and the new IS curve. But output is back at the potential level, and we have higher real interest rate, which is what resulted in the crowding out effect that we discussed. So now over here to notice that we talked about an expansionary fiscal policy with respect to an increase in G, but an expansionary fiscal policy can also be through a reduction in taxes, as through an increase in disposable income that increases consumption. Now, the difference between an increase in G and a decrease in taxes as an expansionary fiscal policy would be that in the case of a tax cut, the shift in the IS curve is less than you would have with an increase in G. Because when you increase G by delta G, the IS curve will shift towards the right by delta G times 1 by 1 minus MPC. But when you reduce taxes, so what that does is, if you reduce taxes by delta T, then consumption would only increase by MPC times delta T as consumers save the rest of the tax cut. So in this case, the IS curve will only shift towards the right by minus MPC by 1 minus MPC delta T. So the tax multiplier is smaller than the government spending multiplier. So in this case, the effects that you see on R and Y are smaller for delta T than for an equal delta G. And again, here you will observe the crowding out effect as we saw in the case of an increase in G, because of which the increase in output that we see in the short run is smaller in the ISLM model than in the Keynesian class.